Hello. I am so fired up to be in South Carolina today. Very happy to be here at South Carolina State. Thank you for having me. I bring you greetings from the great state of California. My wife, Chrissy, says hello too. She sends her love. I'm happy to report that we received our mail-in ballots back home in Los Angeles. The ballots are due in March, but I'm proud to say that I've already marked my choice for the presidential nominee from the Democratic Party. I put it in pen because I made my decision and I'm not changing my mind. I believe Elizabeth Warren should be the next president of the United States of America. Now, I could have kept this to myself. At the beginning of the campaign, my intention was to stay out of it. I wasn't going to publicly endorse anybody in the primary. I would just vote for my preferred candidate, and no matter who won the primary, I'd work my butt off to make sure Trump was a one-term president. As I started watching the campaigns, I had an open mind. I wanted to see who made the most compelling case that they were ready to be president of this country. I watched many of the debates. I saw what the candidates were posting on Twitter. I saw them in town halls and interviews. I read some of their policy positions. And as much as I wanted to publicly stay out of it, it became abundantly clear to me that one candidate stood out from the rest. The one candidate was my clear choice among a very talented field. That one candidate was Elizabeth Warren. And let me tell you why. Let me tell you why I'm so confident in Elizabeth Warren. First of all, she is brilliant. Now, I know the bar is very low right now. We currently have a president who embarrasses this great nation every single day with his incompetence, his unabashed ignorance, his lack of curiosity. Wouldn't it be so refreshing to have a woman of Senator Warren's brilliance replacing him? Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a woman who came from humble beginnings, worked her way through college and law school, and ascended all the way to become a Harvard law professor, a U.S. senator, then president of the United States? Wouldn't that be magnificent? But it's not enough to be brilliant. In a democracy, we don't simply rely on leaders to tell us what they know, to issue commands from high up in their ivory tower. We depend on our leaders to listen to us. The best leaders in a democracy are far more than just smart. The best leaders in a democracy have empathy. They care about ordinary people. They are intentional about paying attention to the everyday struggles of people who are often overlooked. Great leaders in a democracy care about the sick, the forgotten, the marginalized, the poor, the disenfranchised, the incarcerated. They go out of their way to understand the problems that people face, and they have the passion and resolve to do something about it. How do I know Elizabeth Warren practices empathy? I hear it in the way she answers questions about policy, about what she would do in office. If you listen closely, she doesn't just rattle off her policy prescriptions. More than any candidate that I've seen, Elizabeth's answers about policy start with a story about people. She talks about a mother she's met who's struggling to get childcare, the family she's seen driven to bankruptcy by medical care costs, the communities harmed by racial discrimination. She understands that this diverse nation has all kinds of people, and they deserve a president who listens to their issues and cares about making the government work for all of them. She doesn't spend time whining and dining billionaires so she can fund her campaign. She spends her time talking to the people. If you donate $5 to her campaign, she just might personally call you up to say thank you. If you wait in line at one of her rallies to shake her hand and take a selfie, even if there's a line of thousands, she often will stand there and do it for each and every person who shows up and waits long enough. Now, why does she do all that? It's because Elizabeth Warren fundamentally believes that our democracy is in danger, that the government has become too corrupt, too beholden to the interests of the powerful and the connected. And the reason she ran is to give this democracy back to its rightful owners. That's you, the people of the United States. That's why she takes the time to listen to everybody, because she knows that democracy is you. And that's why she's got plans. Yes, y'all know. She's got a plan for that. If you know nothing else about Elizabeth Warren, you know that she has plans that will bring meaningful, positive change to the lives of everyday Americans. You see, she combines her brilliance, her deep understanding of the law and the government, with a profound passion for the people, a sense of empathy that informs every plan and every policy. And that's why whenever she says she intends to do something, you can rest assured she's doing it for a reason. She's listened to people like you. She's thought about the impact. She's spoken to experts in the field, and she's resolved to do something to make it happen. Elizabeth knows that our communities need big structural change, that the system has been rigged against too many people for too long. And she has a plan for that. She grew up on the edge of the middle class, and unlike any other candidate, her personal, professional, and political experience has been devoted to the most critical issue of our time, the pursuit of equal opportunity for all in the United States. Elizabeth believes in capitalism but supports rules and enforcement to ensure that it works for everybody, not just the powerful and wealthy. In order for our democracy to work, we need to make sure our politicians know who they're working for. And that's why Elizabeth has the most sweeping anti-corruption plan since Watergate. We cannot wait any longer to undo all the evil, all the corruption that Trump has unleashed in the last few years. But it's not enough to undo this president's damage to this nation. We have to make big changes that have been needed for decades. Our country has been horrible at investing in education. Elizabeth will guarantee high-quality child care and early education for every child from 0 to 5. And then there's health care. The costs are crushing American families, even those who have good insurance. Millions of people with insurance are one bad diagnosis from going broke. That's why Elizabeth supports Medicare for all, and she plans to fully finance it without raising taxes on the middle class by 1 penny. We also know that racial inequality still runs rampant in our society. We know that this nation's original sin of slavery and its centuries-long devaluing of black lives have had long-lasting effects on the way black folks live in 2020. We've seen the data when it comes to the wealth gap, the home ownership gap, the education gap, the disparities in how we're treated by the criminal justice system. But these aren't just graphs and numbers on the page. These are our lived experiences. Centuries of trauma and exclusion targeted at our communities. Too many of us know what that looks like and what that feels like. And Elizabeth has listened to us. She knows that all this harm visited specifically on the black community, intentionally on the black community, requires intentional remedies, requires solutions that are specifically targeted to our community. She supports creating a commission on reparations for the descendants of enslaved people. Unlike Mayor Bloomberg, she knows that housing discrimination through redlining has been a national tragedy. Her housing plan creates a first-of-its-kind program to help first-time home buyers living in formerly redlined areas buy a home and start building the kind of wealth that government-sponsored discrimination denied their parents and grandparents for decades. She'd commit at least $50 billion in investments in historically black colleges and universities like SCSU. She'd make technical school, 2-year public college and 4-year public college free. She would ban for-profit colleges that prey on communities of color and veterans. She knows that the typical black entrepreneur starts a business with $35,000 in capital, and that's a third of the startup capital for the typical white entrepreneur. The disparity is the single biggest reason that promising black-owned businesses on average are less profitable and bring on fewer employees than white-owned businesses. Elizabeth has a plan for that too. She wants to create a small business equity fund to help close this gap for entrepreneurs of color. And she also knows, like I know, that racism has been codified in our criminal justice system. We are the most incarcerated country in the world, with more jails in our country than colleges and universities. It's outrageous. Elizabeth knows we need progressive criminal justice reform. She will end cash bail, get rid of private prisons, repeal the '94 crime bill, legalize marijuana, and undo the legacy of the war on drugs. Yes. I could go on about Elizabeth's plans. I haven't even talked about what she plans to do on the climate, immigration, protecting women's reproductive rights, but I'm gonna get out of the way so she can tell you herself. But let me just say that none of these plans mean anything if you don't have the persistence, the wherewithal, the passion, the tenacity to get them done. Yes. And that's perhaps what inspires me most about Elizabeth Warren. She persists. She's not afraid of a fight. She's not afraid to take on a challenge. And she has a plan to win. Elizabeth Warren believes in this country. She believes in its people. She believes in democracy, that if we come together, if we listen to one another, if we love one another, if we value each other's lives, we can build a more perfect union. We can address these problems that have been festering for years. We can make big structural change that will improve the lives of millions of everyday people. But none of this happens without the people. It doesn't happen without you. Elizabeth Warren needs you. This country needs you. I vote in California, like I said. I was born and raised in Ohio. Never lived in South Carolina, but I flew all the way across the country to hang out with y'all today. Everybody's watching South Carolina. Everybody wants to know what South Carolina is going to do in this primary. You have the power to send a message that will resound across this nation onto Super Tuesday and throughout this primary process. I know that folks are worried. I'm worried too. I know that Donald Trump is an existential threat to this nation. And everybody's hoping and praying we pick the most electable candidate from the Democratic Party. But the fact is, I can't predict who the most electable nominee is, and you probably can't either. So I'm going to vote based on who I think would make the best president. I want someone brilliant. I want someone empathetic, someone with a plan and the persistence and the fire to make that plan happen. So I hope you will join me. I hope you will vote to make Elizabeth Warren the next president of the United States. And it is my honor and pleasure to, without further ado, introduce to you Elizabeth Warren.